Report with Sam Seder, where every day's Casual Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday, Tuesday, Casual Tuesday, Wednesday, Casual Hump Day, Thursday, Casual Thurs, that's what we call it, and Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, August 5th, 2022. My name is Emma Vigeland, in for Sam Seder, and this is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Ryan Cooper, managing editor at the American Prospect, co-host of the Left Anchor podcast, and author of How Are You Going to Pay for That? Smart Answers to the Dumbest Question in Politics. Meanwhile, Kyrsten Sinema has reportedly agreed to the Manchin-Schumer slimmed-down climate plus package after they scaled back taxes on the wealthy. New job numbers have come in. Unemployment is now down to 3.5%, the lowest figure since the pandemic started in 2020. Over 500,000 jobs have been added as well. So let's see the respective wage increases, though. Please.
Yep, cough it up. Cough all that CARES Act money.
Oh, yeah. The feds have charged 4 of the officers involved in Breonna Taylor's killing for the cover-up, not the crime, and also the falsified affidavit that allowed them to break into her apartment and commit the crime. Glad to see Merrick Garland's alive. China has announced sanctions against Nancy Pelosi for her visit to Taiwan. Election denier Kari Lake has officially won the Republican gubernatorial primary in Arizona. Another Trump endorsement win this week. In Florida, Ron DeSantis has suspended the elected state attorney of Hillsborough County, which encompasses Tampa, for saying that he wouldn't prosecute people who seek or provide abortions, and for being supportive of trans-affirming care. Georgia now says a fetus is a person by tax law. So dumb. But hopefully some people can save some money at least. The State Department of Revenue announced a $3,000 tax exemption for a fetus starting at 6 weeks. How about HOV highway lanes, though, huh? Let's go. What?
I was going to say, is that contingent on you not getting an abortion later?
Oh, I guess. Right?
Just to get it for tax season. I'm sorry. It's Friday, folks.
Could be incentivizing really late-term abortions for tax
arbitrage.
breaks. The jury ruled that Alex Jones has to pay a little over $4 million in compensatory damages to the Sandy Hook victims. Much lower than the plaintiffs were seeking, but there are more trials to come. Yesterday, FBI Director Chris Wray admitted in a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing that thousands of tips on Kavanaugh's sexual assault claims were sent to the Trump White House as the FBI was basically pretending to investigate those allegations. What a joke. And lastly, the Biden administration has officially declared monkeypox a public health emergency. All this and more on today's program. Welcome to the show, everybody. It's Casual Friday, and yes, it is just me today, but it's not just me, of course. I'm joined by the illustrious Matt Leck, the wonderful Bradley Alsop, and we do have Brendan Finn, who is just stepped out to take the call.
In and out.
He is here, though, in the flesh.
He has missed my shout-out, but Brendan, you know, obviously the audience knows him well. He still does some work for us here over at the Majority Report remotely, but he's visiting us in person today, and it's such a lovely treat.
It's a nice little Friday surprise.
Yeah, I was really happy to see him. I don't know about you. I was the happiest, obviously.
Well, I heard him talking from the hallway, and it felt like the old days.
Oh, yeah.
It's nice.
Yeah. So once he gets back in here, maybe we'll give him a more formal shout out. But let's talk about this Sinema news here, because Kyrsten Sinema has reportedly agreed to the Manchin Schumer very, very much slimmed down shadow of Build Back Better bill that has some tax incentives for climate goals, but also some not so good things for the climate that helps out Manchin's donors and probably him himself if people look a little bit harder at the text. Regardless, though, there are some good things in there, and, you know, we have to take anything at this point, given the climate emergency that we're facing. But the big issue was that Manchin wanted the entire bill paid for, and he wanted it to cut into the deficit. That was his hobby horse. That was all of his conditions that I think were largely false, but it was a way for him to cut down Build Back Better to the less than 1/9 of what it was, which is the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. Again, branded in a way that he can sell it to his constituents. But the issue is that Sinema didn't want any tax increases on the wealthy, and so having pay-fors, and then Manchin requiring that, and then Sinema requiring no tax increases on the wealthy. Well, it's a catch-22 for the most part. But luckily, I think they were able to get her on board by providing her with a sacrificial lamb of the carried interest loophole. So basically, Democratic leadership had to agree to drop a $14 billion tax increase on hedge fund managers and private equity executives. This is what she stands for. And that was her red line. No cutting into the carried interest loophole provision. And if you were to get rid of the carried interest loophole altogether, you would save something like over $60 billion in taxes, or claw that back for the government, I should say. This was a very limited closure. It was only for $14 billion, and most instances of the usage of this loophole would have been still allowed under this part of the bill. And yet she got rid of it anyway. And a lot of smarter people than me are basically saying, yeah, they put that in there knowing that she could strike it out and then she'd get a win and she'd be able to say, hey, I'm the person standing for my private equity donors.
Yeah, it's a top line for her when she talks to donors in the future.
Yeah, and I like, you know, it fine, right? I mean, whatever gets something passed, I think, frankly, at this point. But for people that don't know, the carried interest loophole allows these private equity managers, these hedge fund executives, they classify their earnings as capital gains as opposed to just regular income. And capital gains are taxed at 20% as opposed to the income rate for those very wealthy people at 37%. So it saves a lot of money for people in private equity and hedge fund managers. And that was a bridge too far for Kyrsten Sinema. Now, she also included some exceptions in the corporate minimum tax as a part of her conditions. So their corporations can have more deductions and avoid this 15% corporate minimum tax as well. But the carried interest loophole was her big, you know, as I said, red line. And Laura Ingraham caught on to this. She was speaking with Senator Marsha Blackburn last night on her program. And listen to how she frames Sinema's position on this as indicative of the Democratic Party writ large, and why having the Sinema and Manchin and people like them, they're necessary for now, but an excommunication of these kinds of people from the party is really necessary in the future.
Moments ago, your Senate colleague, Kyrsten Sinema, agreed to move forward with the Democrats' tax and spend bill. She could have demanded anything given her bargaining position. She chose to protect the carry interest exemption for private equity. Now, once again, the swamp wins here. I mean, the Democrats reveal themselves to be the party of the elites. The Republicans botched it. Remember the big infrastructure bill that Senator Cassidy from Louisiana came on this show and very dismissively kind of flicked off my concern that they had just given away all their leverage. Oh, no, this makes it less likely that this nonsense is going to go through. What happens?
Then you have chips.
Who was right, Senator?
Yeah, well, you were right about this. Then you have chips. That's $300 billion. Then you have additional spending. This is going to be another $739 billion.
Oh, my God.
$313 billion in tax increases. And all of your mom and pops on Main Street are going to be affected by this because they're pass-through entities. There are taxes on ag production. There are taxes on just about everything up and down. Laura,
Wall Street always gets a sweetheart deal, though, don't they?
They do, but Main Street loses out. And in this bill, Main Street is going to lose out. Farmers are going to lose out. Families are going to lose out.
Chips, all this component parts, it's going to be coming from overseas. This is one of the biggest sellouts, and she could have been a hero. Instead, she's a zero on the Senator. I'm so glad you came in.
Yeah, it's so interesting that they say that because, you know, I'm old enough to remember that Donald Trump on the campaign trail talked about eliminating the carried interest loophole. He had all chambers of Congress for 2 years, and he did tax reform. No change there. He did not close it, and that's because naturally, we know that the Republicans are even more representative of private equity in Wall Street than Democrats like Kirsten Sinema.
Yeah, they were squawking about cutting ACA at the time.
But I think from a messaging perspective, as I said earlier, this is just understand that, yes, Sinema and Manchin are necessary now to pass small things like this. They're also necessary right now to confirm judges, which is something that the Democratic Party has neglected for quite a while, and we saw what the consequences of that kind of neglect entails. And so they are insufficient and, in fact, actually bad people and bad representatives, but they're necessary for right now. But, like, just keep this in your pocket, right? These kinds of folks actually hurt the Democrats' messaging writ large because Laura Ingram's able to make that argument with a straight face. Not that she has any problem lying, but it's a layup to people. Hey, look at this. This Democrat was hanging her hat on the carried interest loophole for private equity and hedge funds. All right.
Yeah, it's nice all these people talk about how great Wall Street is getting. Like, let's take some money from Wall Street and give it to Main Street. Like, we can just do that with taxes.
With that said, we're going to take a quick break, but first, a word from one of our favorite sponsors, which is over here. I lost the paper, Bradley. We need to take a little break really quickly. Be right back. I had it all along. Run a business? Supercharge your knowledge, your sales, and success with Shopify, the all-in-one commerce platform to start, run, and grow your business. Now, Shopify is used here at MR for awesome merch like the Majority Report limited edition shirts, which are selling like hotcakes, folks. I just want to say, look at this, right? There we go. But Shopify helps the delivering of that kind of excellent merch.
Emma's
with
spreading
ease.
of the shirt, I think, is a little bit lacking, but I don't think you quite show the graphic off.
I'm too lazy.
Okay.
You can look it up on the internet. And I got too many things on this desk.
You can hint at it.
I got like a million beverages and a laptop and like too much going on. I'm losing papers like Sam now. Shopify gives entrepreneurs the resources once reserved for big business, so upstarts, startups, and established businesses alike can sell everywhere, synchronize online and in-person sales, and effortlessly stay informed. Shopify powers millions of businesses, including this merch part of the business here, from first sale to full scale. You can reach customers online and across social networks with an ever-growing suite of channel integrations and apps, including Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, and more. Plus, gain insights as you grow with detailed reporting of conversion rates, profit margins, and beyond. More than a store, Shopify grows with you. This is possibility powered by Shopify. So go to shopify.com/majority, all lowercase, for a free 14-day trial and get full access to Shopify's entire suite of features. Grow your business with Shopify today. Go to shopify.com/majority right now. Shopify.com/majority. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back...
We just have one. We got Sunset Lake also. That we have to just talk about it. There's no copy.
It's easy for me to talk about because I use Sunset Lake Seder every night. Because you guys give me the sign. So Sunset Lake is pretty much the only thing that's been helping me get to sleep recently because I drink way too much caffeine, and that's probably an issue for me. But I use the tincture and sometimes the gummies, and the melatonin gummies were really the good stuff, but I'm out of those. Thank you. And I just can't recommend their product enough. Sunset Lake, CPAC.com, and if you use the code left is best, you'll get 20% off anything there. If you smoke other things, you can get the CPAC.
You want the smalls? Yeah, the smalls are a very interesting little product line that I never really heard of before. I would like to see other people follow suit, but Sunset Lake's first people I've seen do it, where the it's pre-stemmed. The stems are gone, so you can just put it right in your grinder. It's nice.
Oh,
convenient.
Nice.
They also sell I can't remember. Some other good stuff.
The gummies are really good. The tincture, as I say, there's tinctures with melatonin that give you that extra help for sleep. And you can get the tincture in different flavors. You can get a natural flavor. You can get a citrus flavor, which I've become very much into recently, mint, etc. But I mean, it all tastes pretty good. You put it under your tongue and it helps you relax. It helps you sleep. Sunset Lake CPAC.com. Use left is best for 20% off. All right, now we will take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be joined by Ryan Cooper. We are back, and we are joined now by Ryan Cooper, who is the managing editor at the American Prospect, a must-read for everybody listening to this program, co-host of the Left Anchor podcast, and author of How Are You Going to Pay for That? Smart Answers to the Dumbest Question in Politics. Ryan, thanks so much for being here.
My pleasure.
So, Kyrsten Sinema seems to have finally gotten what she wanted, an elimination of an even smaller carried interest tweak. And now she says she's going to go ahead with the very much reduced Build Back Better bill, which is now hilariously branded the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. Because, yeah, Manchin got to decide to title it that, right? Like, what do you make of the news that happened overnight?
Some people I know on Twitter suggested some weeks ago that they had put the closing the carried interest loophole into the bill on purpose so that Sinema could take it out. What's interesting is that what they replaced it with, which is a more technical, I don't understand the details exactly, but it's basically a corporate tax hike, a small one, but it's better than closing the carried interest loophole as they had proposed to do, which is a very small, it's like $14 billion over 10 years. I mean, the carried interest loophole is totally indefensible, but it's really not that big of a deal in the broader economic context. So you really would have, if that was their strategy, and I think it might have been, to basically give Sinema, a chit that she could take back to her hedge fund, pals at the winery or whatever, and say, look, I got you this little bonus, and then they get their Inflation Reduction Act. You do have to hand it to them, I guess.
Yeah, I'm pleased with the maneuvering. It is depressing as to what it says about the Democratic Party altogether and Sinema's role in it, I would say. But I mean, so in terms of the new tax that you're discussing, is that different from the 15% corporate minimum tax? Details are still rolling out, so I wasn't aware of this.
Basically, they made the revenue up. Again, I haven't looked up the details of it. Basically, they closed a couple of other loopholes that were even more indefensible than the carried interest loophole. And it's again small potatoes in the grand scheme of things, but you would have to count it, I would say, a net positive that they did one instead of the other, according to the tax nerds that I've been talking to, at least.
I mean, what do you make of this late summer surge by the Democrats here? Is there... I'm surprised that they took this opportunity to strike. I would have thought that they were scrambling to go to the lake house. But it seems like they understood that there needed to be some wins, however piecemeal, for everybody's own skin in the fall.
Yeah, it's hard to say just what happened. I mean, I'll have to admit that I was totally wrong about this. I thought that once they got the bipartisan infrastructure thing through, that was toast for Build Back Better or anything like it. That turned out to be not true at all, even though, Manchin did cut, relative to the original thing that was passed by the House at $3.5 trillion, they've cut that by about 90%. There's almost no welfare stuff at all in there. Nevertheless, the climate stuff is quite almost the whole thing. That's like basically all that's left, but it's almost all of it, even though Manchin got, a bunch of stuff for fossil fuels in West Virginia. I think, it was just like a bunch of things came together. Apparently Schumer and Manchin sort of had a decent working relationship, and Manchin's a very mercurial guy, but I think you can tell. I haven't seen any polls yet showing like a big surge in support for Biden, but like it feels good to like accomplish stuff, and they have just been knocking him out of the park over the last couple of weeks, and I think it's like a sort of thing where momentum tends to build on itself a little bit. And I saw some political reporters saying that their sources in Congress and the White House have been mentioning dark Brandon memes as a possible reason.
No,
not kidding. Benji Starlin from MSNBC, who's a very well-sourced guy, was saying that this had something to do with it, and honestly, it's as good an explanation as any.
Hey Jack, I'm cool on the internet, right? Got to do more of this.
Yeah, I mean, it inspires some elan, some confidence. They are some very funny memes. I will give them that. So could be.
That is really bizarre, and it is interesting, like what these Democrats respond to, honestly. And I want to talk about Schumer a bit, because I feel like people are underselling how his motivation to pass chips, like, really put a poker under his butt individually, because he's been on this China competitive semiconductor bill beat for years. This has been a pet project of his. And so I think it's instructive, like, if you get these senators to feel like there's actually a direct connection with what they pass and get them emotionally invested in it, and oftentimes that has to do with their own electoral careers, but that's harder to do in the Senate. But for Schumer, he seemed to really be motivated to get this through, and that, I think, boded well for obviously the Inflation Reduction Act and the shadow of Build Back Better that's likely to pass now. I mean, what's your opinion on why he kind of was so bullish on it and how that affected these past few weeks legislatively in the Senate?
Yeah, so on the CHIPS bill, it is more or less a great big handout to the semiconductor industry. I would say it's better. It's better than nothing. It could have been made a lot better with more union protections and stuff like that. But honestly, the last couple of weeks has sort of demonstrated why Schumer has been so obsessed with this for so long. Not only during the pandemic did we see like the problem of having like all semiconductor manufacturing being concentrated in like two companies, with the shortages that have driven up the price of cars and so much else. Everything's got chips in it now. Now that Pelosi is for some reason inflaming tensions with China in over Taiwan, which has the largest semiconductor company in the world, TSMC. It's actually kind of, you see why you would want some domestic capacity to make this stuff. But the remarkable thing about passing chips was that this is a bipartisan bill. The Republicans want it too. It's like jobs and pork basically for them. Mitch McConnell, that if Democrats even talk about doing a Reconstruction bill, anything that's coming out of Build Back Better, then he's going to tank the CHIPS bill. And so when Joe Manchin, sorry, my cat is,
yeah, it's okay. Your cat always makes an appearance every time you're on, and it's welcome.
Yeah, animals, they'll sit and sleep all day long until you start talking on a video interview, and then they jump in. But so to get back to the story, Manchin announced, we all remember that, it's like, Build Back Better's done, I'm not voting for any tax increases, blah, blah, blah. And so McConnell let his guard down. He let chips through. Hours later, Manchin and Schumer just stabbed him right in the, I mean, they didn't agree to anything, but they tricked him. It was a total bait and switch. And it's like, oh my God, Chuck Schumer is doing this Machiavellian maneuvering. And apparently it seems to have worked. They've got Manchin on board. Now they have Sinema on board. This weekend, apparently they're going to vote through Inflation Reduction Act.
Yeah.
And, have a nice package of stuff for the midterms.
Well, so, I mean, they got one over on Mitch McConnell. Honestly, it feels like I'm having some sort of CBD-infused dream. No, joking. That's for our sponsor. But, I mean, this is really okay, so maybe it's the second time he's got in the last 2 years, right? I mean, the second COVID relief package, he had no real footing as a way to oppose that. And now with this, he was furious, I guess, not reportedly, but it seemed that way given how the other Republican senators responded. I can't even believe that the Democrats were able to pull something like this off given their track record.
I mean, I think sometimes it's easy to overestimate the cunning of the opposition, but it's inarguable that Democrats have been just absolutely helpless, compared to McConnell over the last decade. The other thing to mention about this is the PACT Act, which is the Veterans Healthcare Bill, another bipartisan thing. Everyone loves the troops, and this one is about specifically like veterans who got chronic conditions, cancer and whatnot from burn pits in Afghanistan and Iraq, and also Agent Orange exposures in Vietnam. And when McConnell got so mad about getting had basically on the CHIPS bill, the Republicans were going to block the Veterans Healthcare Bill. They're going to take that hostage. They're just going to block it out of spite, and that gave them like a solid 3 or 4 days of just devastating media coverage, even in like Fox News. Jon Stewart was on Newsmax getting respect interviews about how like this is a totally necessary thing, and these Republican scumbags are just, you know, they don't support the troops. I mean, it's like the third rail of politics. And so they were, not only did they vote against the troops, but then they were forced into a humiliating about face and then voted the bill through. So now Democrats get to have their cake and eat it too. You know, it's like this guy voted against the troops and we still have the bill that we were trying to pass. Like, I mean, that one, you know, as far as cunning, that was just completely stupid on the part of Republicans. And I think it tends to show you that they've gotten overconfident in their ability to just sort of do whatever they want without, you know, even thinking about it.
Yeah, so I'm curious if, and maybe this is a wishful question on my part, but what does this spell for McConnell as it relates to how the Democrats are planning to deal with him in the future? I mean, there's incredibly hope, and most people I speak to think it's maybe like 55%, 60% that the Democrats retain the Senate. If they're able to gain some confidence from this, what do you think could happen in terms of potentially maybe taking the fight to him and being a bit more aggressive, or is this a bit of a flash in the pan given Schumer's attachment to chips?
I think, you know, it puts them in a dramatically better position, not just for the midterms, but over the next, you know, several election cycles. Because if you can hold the Senate, and now that they have like a pretty, you know, not only a pretty decent record to run on, the abortion stuff is killing Republicans. You know, we saw that in Kansas. The anti-abortion thing lost by almost 20 points. The bipartisan infrastructure bill and the Inflation Reduction Act, they both have, they set the stage for a whole lot of future fights that we can have over climate change, especially. So like the infrastructure bill has like hundreds of billions of dollars that's earmarked for like transit broadly. So you could spend it basically on highways or on like, you know, buses or electric vehicle charging stations, that sort of thing. And so which one of those is going to be picked is like a big, it's an open question. And if Republicans have anything to do with it, they're going to just like, you know, set up big mountains of coal and just set them on fire. You know, so, but now you have like a potential, like something to inspire people to get out and fight, rather than, you know, just this helpless, like vote harder to keep out the Republicans and we're not going to do anything. It's like, no, now we have, you know, like a slate of stuff worth fighting for, and a pretty considerable accomplishment, honestly, when you think about the closeness of the margins in the Senate. Like, this is considerably more than, I think it's fair to say, was passed during the Obama Congress in 2009 to 2010.
Isn't that a shocking statement, though? Is that not a shocking statement?
Yeah. Incredible.
And to have, okay, you have something to run on or vote for, plus let's get into the abortion discussion here. The fury on the side of Democratic voters about the Roe v. Wade reversal. I was skeptical that given the fact that Democrats hold power in the executive branch and in both halls of Congress, that it would connect to voters that, you know, go to the polls, and then if you elect more Democrats, not just the Democrats we have in office, then we'll protect abortion. I was really skeptical a few months ago that would translate at all electorally, and now we have some hope. I mean, what's been your take on what we've seen?
They do seem to be coalescing around basically a promise that they'll reform the filibuster. If you just give us 2 more senators, which is not out of the question, though it would be pretty hard, then they can not abolish the filibuster, but amend it so that you can vote through a national abortion legalization, you know, some sort of codification of Roe. And that's just like a very simple and clear, you know, ask. It's like we only have 2 holdouts. It's Manchin and Sinema, of course it is, and everyone else is on board with that change of the filibuster. And I think more, broadly, they haven't really been messaging hard on that yet. But I think more broadly, you're seeing it in the way that Republicans are talking too. They really are just the dog that caught the car on this one. Republicans have been telling themselves that no, like normal person ever needs an abortion. And like 99% of the time, it's someone who's like 9 months pregnant and basically is like, I don't want to have a kid. Let's just put it in the garbage, basically. And it's just like, no, that's not the reality of it at all. And I think normal, like ordinary sort of non-political people have been totally misled by decades of pro-life propaganda. To like the reality of it is, it's a super common, super necessary thing just for the health of people who are, adults, or even people who want to have kids. It's just miscarriages and ectopic pregnancies and other, unusual medical conditions. I mean, these will kill people without abortions, even people who have wanted children. And the stories that are coming out, like the 10-year-old rape victim that they were going to, force to, bear the child, which is like incomprehensibly terrible. That's the reality. And it's just devastating, I think, it's devastating for the people who are forced to go through that, but it's like, oh, this is the reality. This is the pro-life utopia you want to create, where, like preteens have to bear their rape babies. It's just horrifying.
Yeah, and it honestly, to me, it speaks to the brutality more than anything that I've been frustrated about the Democratic leadership messaging on this, where they're even reluctant to say the word abortion still to this day, and yet the horror stories that come out, like the 10-year-old, which really, honestly, I think penetrated a news cycle, and a lot of people heard about that, and there will be more. We read, I think, for maybe like a half an hour on this show, just different horror stories of a woman who was suffering a medical episode and the doctor wouldn't perform an abortion on her for fear of litigation. She sat in the bathtub and he said, as when it fills with blood, or when you have a diaper that fills with blood, you can come back and then maybe we'll be able to help you. There will be more of these, 100%.
Yeah, and most people know, my own sister, desperately wanted kids, did end up having 2 kids. She had 3 miscarriages and an ectopic pregnancy, almost died twice, from blood loss. And had she not, I'm not sure if it would have counted exactly as abortion care, but there's like the dilation and extraction, whatever the procedure, the sort of abortion-like, that's also banned in a lot of these cases. She probably would have died if she had lived in one of these, new conservative regimes, because, it's like you don't have time to sit there and, it was a question of minutes in one case. And I think, you see this tactical retreat from people like Doug Mastriano, the Republican candidate for governor in Pennsylvania, who was, he was at January 6th, but he's also been a big time, let's ban abortion, no exceptions, for years and years. And now he's just keeping mum about it, which I think is, it doesn't tell you that he's not going to do it. He's not going to ban abortion if he can. He just thinks it's a political loser for him to mention, his actual opinions.
You talked about Pennsylvania there. I think a lot of attention is focused on that race, rightly so, partly because it feels good to have a Democrat like Fetterman who's running his campaign in the way that he is. It's so refreshing. But I saw someone point out on Twitter, at this point in, I think in 2020, everyone was convinced that Susan Collins was going to lose, and all the polling indicated that was happening. And that threw a little bit of cold water on, I think, my confidence, I guess. Although I do think, I don't even remember, Sarah, what was the name of the candidate? Gideon?
Yeah.
Gideon. Yeah. Gideon in Maine. Who even knows what kind of campaign she ran, right? It's not comparable to what Fetterman's doing. But, is there an opportunity for some of this? I don't think this is the case, but I'm wondering if you think so. Is there an opportunity for some of this fury to cool by midterm time? And maybe it's being some of this is over reflected in certain polls.
I mean, I think it's more or less up to, the candidates in the party. What I'd say about Fetterman is that he seems to be keeping, the campaign on a boil, and he is talking about abortion a lot. The other thing about Gideon, if there's a candidate in the race who is like Gideon, it is Dr. Oz. She ended with like $10 million in the bank or something like that. She didn't even spend. I mean, she just raised money, and that's pretty much all she did. Dr. Oz hasn't even been buying any Facebook ads. It's like he just doesn't seem to want it at all, and he's been totally AWOL from the state, and just walking right into this buzzsaw of being like a millionaire carpetbagger. And so, I think that it'll depend on, whether in states like Arizona and Pennsylvania people can keep the focus on, because I've been watching. I live in Philadelphia, so occasionally I'll go to the bar or something and see some Josh Shapiro ads. He's the guy running against Mastriano, and they're pretty good ads as far as like making you really frightened about Mastriano, because if they win, they're going to try to abolish democracy in both of those states. They're going to rig the system like they have rigged, Wisconsin, where like the legislature, like legislative elections are basically fraudulent, and the Democrats can't win, unless they get 70-point margin or something. And so, you have the campaign question, and then just like the organic flow of terrible abortion stories, which I think are just like it's going to be a daily occurrence. It's some kind of horrifying. I don't think I've seen one yet where somebody died, but it's going to happen for sure. And you can just say, Alito killed that person, and it's just open and shut. That's what happened.
You mentioned you were talking a bit about the election denial of Mastriano's involvement in Jan 6, and I was just reminded of how I guess Kari Lake officially won the Republican primary announced yesterday to be the Republican running in the gubernatorial election in Arizona. And there are some interesting parallels, I think, with Arizona and Pennsylvania. They're both purplish states, but maybe leaning a little bit more blue, and they both have gubernatorial candidates who are vehement Trump supporters, election deniers, and the stakes for those two races could not be higher because of the ramifications of how they could rig elections going forward in those states. What's been your take on some of the rise of these candidates to being the actual Republican nominees in not deep red states, but states where Democrats could potentially win going forward?
Yeah. I mean, Mastriano would be overseeing the election infrastructure. And you just like, I think it's hard to honestly to be as like freaked out about it as we should be. Because you see, it's the springboard for creating national Jim Crow, where you have fraudulent elections, and it's the whole electoral system is just a way of like ratifying a one-party dictatorship, basically. And the other thing about these people is that not only are they like nuts, they are also just incredibly hateful and full of rage. Like Mastriano has been getting a lot of bad press over his association with this guy, Andrew, what's his name? The head of who runs the site Gab.
He's anti-Semitic, white supremacist ties.
He's a Nazi.
Yeah.
He's a Nazi. And like he's clearly very close friend. Mastriano briefly hired him as a consultant, and he only sort of cut ties because of, the bad press he was getting, but it clearly hasn't, like changed his beliefs. It's just a tactical retreat. And what these people would do with permanent national power is really quite terrifying to contemplate. I don't think any kind like mass violence should be ruled out at all. That was the core of the Jim Crow system, was a constant threat of violence against, not only like black people, but any white people who stepped out of line. A number of civil rights workers and activists who were killed during the civil rights movement were white. People who come down from New York City and stuff, or Southern folks who challenge the hegemony of the system. People get killed, and I don't think that type of sort of quasi-fascist kind of terror state should be ruled out as a possibility. And it's worth, it's kind of unfortunate that Shapiro is the guy. He didn't even have an opponent in the primary, but he's got to win. He's got to win. God help us all if he doesn't.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, hey, look, our institutions are strong, so they'll save us if these kinds of people get into power, right? The arc of history, it's just you don't got to do anything. It just bends towards everyone being fair and everything being just, right?
Yeah. It's funny that people who say that a lot, like Obama, are the people who don't do the things that are necessary to make it happen.
Yeah.
He had an almost limitless ability to deal with the Great Recession and didn't. He just did what Goldman Sachs CEO Hank Paulson told him to do. And it was, now we are where we are. But it's never too late to pull up rather, and fix things. Or at least it isn't yet. And so, it's kind of who knows where Republicans will go after this if they do lose. But hopefully if they constantly get swatted down by the electorate for being, fascists, then maybe they'll moderate a little bit. Who knows? But that's a question for down the road.
I mean, and it's also an interesting wrinkle is when Trump announces. Is it going to be before the midterms? Is it going to be right after the midterms? He's already giving semi-campaign speeches, and I wonder how that has an effect. I would imagine that it would be a gift to Democrats if he announces before the midterms, but I don't know anything. I mean, who's to say? It could also energize Republicans as well.
He's another mercurial guy. If I had to guess, I would say that it will happen immediately if he gets indicted for, treason against democracy. It'll be right after that. But otherwise, he certainly doesn't care if it's going to benefit the party or not, because if he was going to do that, then he wouldn't run at all. But that
is right. Though, the saving grace of it all, right? I mean, hopefully he's like Gollum looking for the ring, and he gets it finally as he falls into the pits of Mordor. I'm sorry to be this dorky on a casual Friday, but that's my hope for all this.
The other thing about Trump, though, is that he's very he doesn't sound like he did in 2016. I remember going through yesterday, I found an old tweet thread of mine that was like, when Trump starts sounding like Bernie, I get a horrible feeling in the pit of my stomach. This was like March 2016.
Mm-hmm.
I later talked myself out of it, but I probably shouldn't have. He doesn't, back then it was like, build a wall. We're going to give everyone a good paying manufacturing job. DC is corrupt. Very simple, make America great again. Now it's
drain the swamp. Everyone's corrupt but me. Right.
Like slogans we all remember. He's a really good propagandist, but when you listen to him now, it's all backwards looking grievance. He's gonna overturn the 2020 election. He's really mad at all the Republicans who betrayed him, Mike Pence, and he doesn't really have a sort of positive, outlook. Like his 2016 campaign, for all its like bitterness and racism, was kind of optimistic. It was like we're gonna fix the problems such as they are. And now it's like I'm gonna take revenge on my enemies. It's not. It's like, I mean, I wouldn't rule anything out. He's still a formidable candidate. He still has a death grip on a huge number of people. But I think that's just not a great sort of vibe, for lack of a better word.
And he's really just like an insult comic, right? Like, what did he say about Larry Hogan? It's just, he was gonna run for president, but he look in the mirror and he said, "No thanks, like I'm good," or something like that. I mean, yes, he's hilarious when he does that kind of stuff, and I do think he still got it to the degree of riling up a crowd, and he can get all those MAGA folks out to the polls in droves. But in a national election, it's just everything was stolen from me, right?
Yeah.
So unfair to me. I don't know.
Hillary Clinton campaign.
Oh, yeah. Honestly.
I'm with her. I deserve it. It's mine. And
it's my time now.
Ready for Trump.
I'm with Trump. I'm with Trump. Man, that is honestly, that was such a good point. That's such a good point, really. Making it about himself. I don't know how that translates.
Yeah. But, maybe he'll get his mojo back. I don't know. Or since he got COVID, he's kind of low energy. Like maybe he's got some chronic fatigue or something.
He did not get the best COVID. So I guess lastly, because you mentioned it, and I talked about it a bit on the show yesterday, Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan.
Oh boy.
Like, I was shocked. I was very critical of the visit, and I got some mixed responses from some people. But to me, it was obvious that the Biden administration did not want her to go. Blinken did not want her to go. Anybody who's worked in diplomacy understood it was a bad idea. To me, this might have something to do with her financial connections via her husband to chip manufacturing, and like maybe I'm not being a conspiracy theorist, but at the very least, that's probably what was the impetus for the connection. I'm not sure, but talk a bit about what the implications are of it and why you it seems like you share my perception that it was a bad idea.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think it's important to emphasize that China's claim on Taiwan is totally ridiculous. That like this is clearly its own established country. It's a democracy, unlike China. People in Taiwan don't want to be part of a communist dictatorship that's incredibly repressive. They have every right to exist, to continue to be a self-governing democracy. But it's also clear that China is, dedicated to the theoretical, like one China policy, regards as a sort of breakaway province. And it just, to me, like the reason that's most convincing to me that I've heard, a lot of longtime Pelosi watchers tell me is that she's just a convinced China hawk.
Yeah.
And so she's going there because she's sort of belligerent, like you guys suck and we're defending Taiwan, blah, blah, blah. And it's just an incredibly inept way to do it, that to barge in and, poke at this incredibly sensitive, wound, something that the Chinese government regards as, a long-standing trauma of sorts. And you see in their reaction that, like, for whatever claims that however legitimate Taiwan is as a country, like the Chinese regime is maybe a little bit wacky. They are not reacting to this in a sort of like a cold-blooded, realpolitik Henry Kissinger fashion. They're going bug nuts over it, with all these, confrontational maneuvers and training exercises and stuff like that. And, you know, you see Vladimir Putin invading Ukraine. That was a totally insane thing to do, you know, and it's worked out horribly for him. But like these kind of dictatorships are that can happen sometimes. And China is a much more formidable country than Russia. I think that's totally without question. And you know, I mean, just a war in this region just could not be a worse possibility for everyone in the region and everyone in the world. You know, like I was saying, they have the biggest semiconductor you know, company and the biggest factory in the world, and to have a big whole fight there is just nuts. And I think it tends to demonstrate that Pelosi is a elderly, out of touch, you know, doofus when it comes to international diplomacy, at least. You know,
yeah,
someone with a little more tact.
And I wonder if Ukraine has kind of broken some people's brains to an extent where
Oh, undoubtedly.
People like her probably think that this is a new. Well, one, I'll never forget watching Hillary Clinton on Rachel Maddow in the wake of Putin's invasion of Ukraine, kind of hinting that this could be an opportunity to weaken Putin on a national stage. And like, I think there are a lot of ghouls and people and hawks in surrounding these kinds of folks who see American prestige declining, the U.S. empire declining. They, you know, we understand that, but they want, you know, to find the next rival or enemy as a way to prop up the United States empire as it kind of is bleeding out, even though they may not have that same awareness of it. And so, like, this is almost, Ukraine almost gave these same people a 500th wind, as the rest of us kind of understand that the U.S. is not going to be able to sustain itself in this way on the global stage anymore. But like, they're getting this confidence from, you know, U.S. funding of weaponry in Ukraine.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing where
We are back. It finally happened. We were worried that the air conditioner would blow out the power, and it just happened.
Did on Friday. And just to note, this is the only place we're live. Sorry, folks. This will be the only place we're live today. We can't get the other streams up. What's up?
But just wanted to say thank you so much to Ryan. Thanks for staying on the line. Everyone should check out Ryan Cooper's work, managing editor at The American Prospect and co-host of the Left Anchor podcast, author of How Are You Going to Pay for That? Smart Answers to the Dumbest Questions in Politics. Ryan, thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right, folks. With that, we are going to probably take a break. Figure something out, right, Bradley? We're going to take a quick break. Sorry about that, guys. See you in a second. We are back. What an eventful day here at the Majority Report studios. We're going to head into the fun half, and if this happens again, you'll understand why it did. But first, Matt, I don't even need to ask, but what's happening over on Left Reckoning?
It's a great appearance by yours truly, Emma Vigland, and also David Griscom's got a little video essay for you today, and I might do a Lex stream. I don't know, I got some stuff going on that might preclude that, but I might do a Lex stream tonight or tomorrow, so look out for that, folks. Patreon.com/leftreckoning.
All right, with that, we're going to head into the fun half where we will be taking your calls, I think, and then also doing some clips. See you in the fun half.
3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9 months from now. And I don't think it's going to be the same as it looks like in 6 months from now. And I don't know if it's necessarily going to be better 6 months from now than it is 3 months from now. But I think around 18 months out, we're going to look back and go like, wow. What? What is that going on? It's nuts. Wait a second. Hold on for a second. Emma, welcome to the program.
Hey.
Matt.
What is up, everyone?
Nomi Key.
You did it. Let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon.
Bradley, you want to say hello?
Sorry to disappoint everyone. I'm just a random guy.
It's all the boys today.
Fundamentally false.
No, I'm sorry. Women's...
Stop talking for a second and let me finish.
Where is this coming from, dude?
But dude, you want to smoke this 7-8?
Yes.
Hi, me? Is it?
Yes.
Is this me?
Is it me?
It is you.
Is this me? Hello? Is this me?
I think it is you. Who is you? No sound. Every single freaking day. What's on your mind?
Sports. We can discuss free markets and we can discuss capitalism.
I'm gonna go throw up.
Libertarians. They're so stupid, though. Common sense says, of course.
Gobbledygook.
We fucking nailed him.
So what's 79 plus 21?
Challenge met.
I'm positively quivering. I believe 96, I want to say.
857-210-35. 501. 1/2. 3/8.
9/11, for instance.
$3,400, $1,900.
6, 5, 4, $3 trillion sold. It's a zero-sum game.
Actually, you're making me think less of it.
But let me say this. Poop.
You can call it satire. Sam goes, it's satire.
On top of it all, my favorite part about you is just like every day, all day, like everything you do.
Without a doubt. Hey, buddy, we see you. All right, folks.
It's just the week being weeded out, obviously.
Yeah, sun's out, guns out. I don't know.
But you should know.
People just don't like to entertain ideas anymore.
I have a question. Who cares?
Our chat is enabled, folks.
I love it.
I do love that.
Look, gotta jump. Gotta be quick. I gotta jump.
I'm losing it, bro.
2 o'clock. We're already late, and the guy's being a dick. So screw him. Sent to a gulag?
Outrageous.
Like, what is wrong with you?
Love you, bye.
Love you. Bye-bye.
We are back on an eventful Friday. Let's
Sons of bitches.
It is a certain kind of like power trauma. Like I've had a power outage in Brooklyn once during a heat wave like several years ago, and like
oh Jesus,
it makes you anxious when it happens once. And I mean, thankfully this is just we just have to reset the circuit breaker. But
yeah, it is like. Yeah, we're just going to be on the same stream so people understand. So I guess it's a freebie Friday.
Yeah, and actually, Bradley, we should probably send a message out to the app people so they know why it's not still live. And anybody on Twitch or whatever, they need to come here to YouTube.
And with also that said, I am struggling to access the phone system due to the power outage. So we will see how this goes, but we might just be reading IMs and doing clips today.
It turns out that 12-year-old Mac Minis aren't the best at being immediately shut off from power and then booting back up.
No. Let's read some IMs. Jazz Revolution. Matt, do you still play the saxophone? They say Bill Clinton was actually a really talented saxophonist. Most people don't know that even Donald Trump played a musical instrument. He plays the rusty trombone.
No, okay. I don't. I barely even played the saxophone when I nominally played it in 6th grade. But I wish I did. Destroyer is a band that has really good saxophone parts. I think a good sax solo is. David Bowie has some very good ones. I love a good sax solo.
That song "Kaput" by Destroyer is a great track.
Wow, so they kept that going even past the 80s, where I feel like sax solo.
You gotta listen to "Kaput" by Destroyer.
Yeah, Destroyer is they're like the new Pornographers is the guy from there.
I know that.
It's his band, and he has.
Cool. I didn't even know that. I'm a huge Destroyer fan. I never was able to really get into New Pornographers,
which is funny because, and also coincidentally, his name is literally like basically Carl Bayer also. His name is Becher or Bayer. I don't remember how you pronounce it, but that's his band.
Have you ever seen him in the same place?
Yeah. Good to know. Interesting.
Sam's Tight Pants. Even the talking heads on Morning Joe today could put 2 and 2 together on why Sinema was protecting hedge fund managers. When even TV anchors can't find another reason to defend your position, you've really screwed up. That's if you cared in the first place, and we all know she didn't. Ruben Gallego, 2024. Libertarian flatulence. Why no Sam today? Is he still recovering from the 3-hour-long debate with that rambling libertarian? Are you kidding me? Sam gets energy from that. It drains the rest of us, but Sam gets energy from that. He's more excited.
Legitimately
after
could have done 4 hours.
Yeah. Jess from the West. Hi all. Today is our official day of classes. I think he meant first day of classes in our district. It seems there's a focus on social emotional learning this year and over the all student well-being. Last year there were 2 bomb threats, constant fighting between students, damage to school property, drug charges, and a general lack of student engagement. Did I mention I work at a middle school? As it turns out, the front office is running a racket on Jeans Day. Here's the rub, y'all. In order to participate in Jeans Day, you've got to have the spirit shirt. Who sells the spirit shirts? Why the front office? At this point, I'm convinced everything in this country is a scam. Even Jeans Day is stuck behind a paywall. Happy Jeans Day. Sometimes it snows in Toronto. F. Sam's not in. Yes.
Thanks for the IM.
Yep. Murray the York. I know you said the other day that it's a pain, but I think you should get John at least saying the M-Majority Report without Sam Seder for the intro while Sam's hosting. You know, I'll give him a call.
I'll text him.
Yeah, hey.
Dago Lefty. Emma, after getting into numerous arguments at work over the years, the other day I realized many of the disagreements happen because people are just completely illiterate when it comes to government budgets and how things are paid for. A lot of people have the impression that the budget is like a debit card, and every time something like an EBT card is used, it charges to the general fund. It sounds ridiculous, but I think it explains why why more people blame social programs on the debt rather than wealthy elites that are dodging taxes. Yes. Got to read Stephanie Kelton to get that mind reprogrammed. All right, let's
we talked about the veterans bill a little bit. Do you want to see how Crowder coped with it a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I just wanted to let you guys know that I haven't gotten any new IMs for like 5 minutes. So
I think that might be a fan's problem as well. I think something with I don't know why, because the
server's
server's not here.
We're ending early today.
Yeah,
we can't. There's no IMs. There's no calls. So we're gonna do some clips and then we're gonna get out of here. I'm just letting you know. And like I'm now having anxiety that the power's gonna go out a second time.
No, we got that. We have the air conditioner set at like 80 degrees. So
God damn it!
It won't go up again.
I earnestly wish anyone else could have experienced what it was like for the power to just shut off mid-interview here with us.
It's like Severance.
Yeah.
It was so alarming.
All right. Anyway,
but we'll have a fun half for a couple things. If you unless you have more to say on that.
No, I mean.
So I watched the Steven Crowder video. There's a really good coping episode of Steven Crowder where he coped a lot because he had to cope with the fact that Kansans unanimously support abortion, or not unanimously, obviously, but overwhelmingly, I should say. And now he's apparently getting a lot of emails and stuff from his fans that are concerned because you said, like, the Newsmax interview where Jon Stewart was on, like, they're like, wait, I thought we were the veteran supporting folks. So I just want to play this to see how Crowder sort of has to handhold his audience through this.
Let's see.
Senate's where accountability goes to die. These people don't care. They're never losing their jobs.
Support term limits, Johnny boy?
They're never losing their health care. Pat Toomey didn't lose his job. He's walking away. God knows what kind of pot of gold he's stepping into.
Yeah. It's ironic that he uses the term pot of gold. So look, this is what I want to do.
Why is that ironic?
What does that mean?
Is that anti-Semitism, maybe? I think that's what that is.
Oh my God, I didn't even put that together.
Yeah, you know, Jon Stewart's real name is John Leibowitz.
Oh, we all know. Every right-wing commentator seems to bring that up all the time.
Wonder why.
I think absolutely Crowder's doing anti-Semitism.
Exercise with you right now, because a lot of people have actually, they'll reach out, they'll go through our email contacts on the website, like tips@loudwithcrowder.com or something like that, and they'll say, hey, I know that there's something going on with this burn pit bill, the PACT Act, but I don't exactly know what it is because I do think that veterans should be taken care of. Why are Republicans voting against this? Okay, here are the questions that you should ask. If something feels off, let's start with figuring out why it feels off. Does this pass the sniff test? Basic logical questions. Okay, are Republicans typically the party that don't support veterans? Is it typically the Democratic Party who want to actually reform the VA, actually increase efficiencies, actually want to create an effective military, not a social justice petri dish? Are the Democrats the party that have been pro-military, pro-veterans? Okay, let's ask that. Does this seem in line?
Yeah.
So basically, just like if you have cognitive dissonance, just retreat to your prior convictions.
It really is like a real-time example of a cope. Right? He is, you see his psychology there, right? Like, he does not know what else to do except to revert to some sort of shot at Jon Stewart's religion and culture. So it's an anti-Semitic point, even though I guess maybe, is he talking about Pat Toomey? Is Pat Toomey Irish?
Yeah, well, I guess maybe Jesus. Yeah, one way or the other. Like, I mean, it shows where his mind is. He's thinking very ethnically.
Yes. But honestly, they really have a hard time reconciling this, and it's just not anything new. Bernie Sanders was the chair of the Veterans Committee in the Senate for a long time, and there have been write-ups about how he fought tooth and nail for more and more healthcare benefits for veterans, while John McCain was on the other side, and there's this push and pull between the two where John McCain wanted to cut. So, like, it has nothing to do with how much flag waving you do and how much you love the goddamn war. It has to do with, do you believe that the government is responsible for social spending for healthcare for its citizenry? And that extends to veterans. It's a tried and true phrase, but Republicans and conservatives love soldiers and they hate veterans.
Well, they make a lot of veterans because and this is definitely a bipartisan thing about not taking care of vets. It's something this country has been doing honestly for the entirety of American history. There's constantly people who we put on the front lines to do fighting for us, for often imperial wars of aggression and expansion, and then they get screwed over, and the bigwigs come in and take all the benefits of it. So, but yeah, of course, like you're saying about the VA stuff, like Republicans want to do some very unpopular things to the VA, like the idea that we should just expect them to be good faith about like privatization schemes and stuff like that is just absurd. And yeah, Bernie Sanders is the veteran candidate.
And Bradley, can you pull this up I just sent there? This is just with Crowder, unable to actually effectively respond to Jon Stewart's super straightforward arguments about this. Tucker Carlson also is struggling to respond. A reminder that they have a bit of a personal history. Jon Stewart's mockery nearly 2 decades ago of Tucker Carlson wearing a bow tie on Crossfire pretty much caused Tucker to abandon his trademark, right? He got so thoroughly embarrassed, but that wasn't all that happened on Crossfire. Tucker Carlson was humiliated by Jon Stewart as a hack to his face in the midst of debates about the Iraq War. And this was part of why, Jon Stewart to me was like, again, there's limitations, I think, to his politics now, but he's done an amazing job with this issue in particular, and why he was such an effective communicator and like a gateway for a lot of people into leftist politics growing up, particularly in the middle of the Iraq War. And just shed such a light on people like Bush, Cheney, and also guys like Tucker Carlson. Tucker has not forgotten this. Tucker is so salty that this is the kind of thing that he resorts to on his national programming. Still smarting about the bow tie crack and the call out of his hypocrisy decades later.
Yeah, fresh off the golf course.
Yeah.
That's Jon Stewart? The famous Jon Stewart looks like a homeless mental patient. What? He's shrieking and disheveled and very short, really short, too short to date. Was he always that short? What happened? Where's he been the last 7 years? If you know, let us know. We want answers. That's Jon Stewart.
What?
Yeah. Jon Stewart responded on Twitter. Maybe we can get that too. I'm sorry. I hadn't thought about talking about this, but Crowder reminded me because, like, I've been saying that the way Stewart's been messaging this and the aggressiveness with which he's called out really the Republicans, I wish he'd say Republicans a bit more by name, but again, I'm quibbling because it's been excellent. It really freaks these guys out here. So Jon Stewart responded, "Friends, tonight I am sad. Tucker Carlson believes me too short to date, and yet somehow miraculously I remain tall enough to not know what Viktor Orban's ass tastes like. Is it goulash, Tucky? Seems like it would be goulash." All right. So,
I gotta hand it to Jon Stewart. He's on point there.
I mean, we'll get to Viktor Orban in a little bit, but good for him. And Tucker wants to call him short on national television, make fun of his appearance. Like, he'll do that, but not when Jon Stewart's right in front of his face, because we all saw how he shrank like a violet when Jon Stewart was in front of his face on Crossfire.
Yeah.
People should look that up. Look up that video if you want some real serotonin in your brain today. But hey, Tucker, are you willing to sit down with an hour-long debate with Jon Stewart to talk about some of these issues? My sense is no. My sense is you're only brave enough to say this on your program nationally, on your home turf, when you're around all your friends and your producers and you're making millions of dollars in that studio. But hey, go to a neutral site and debate Jon Stewart. Everyone would love it. You'd make money. You'd ratings gold.
Sorry, I also have to say, I mean, maybe this is just a listed height. Jon Stewart's 5'7". Like, that's not. I wonder how, like, actually short Tucker Carlson fans feel when he says stuff like that. Like, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
It seems interesting line of attack. I mean, look, it's speaking truth to power is tough, and Tucker, finds interesting avenues to do it.
And right, but it's like, is Jon Stewart power here? No, he's just somebody that is. You can't really confront him on the merits. I would love to see them round 2. Let's go, but Tucker won't do it. Because he only feels comfortable insulting Jon Stewart, not to his face, like the bitch that he is.
It's so funny. Like, I don't know. Tucker Carlson says he went to Trinity College. He's acting. I look at his bio. Put that back up, Bradley. Sorry. Emmy award-winning broadcast journalist, graduate of Harvard College and Yale Law School. A frequent visitor of the Aspen Institute, fully vaccinated. She hears. So, like, he's being a little bit obviously taking a. Whack
and
at
the
trans
Ukraine
people.
flag emoji too.
Yeah, and but like bro, you went to Trinity College is a private liberal arts school. Like, I don't know what.
Yeah,
the
actually, it's
joke
for
is here.
rich kids too dumb to get into Harvard or Yale.
If
Bill Belichick's kids went there.
If you're the son of and a sort of a middling, mediocre son of Voice of America, like, it's like, oh, Tucker forged his own way. No, this guy was basically a plant. His dad was working for the CIA, cut out Voice of America. So those sorts of things, I think they sometimes get lost in the sort of discourse when a lot of the anti-contrarian Tucker Carlson defenders start talking about how he's the only person saying this or the only person saying that, when of course he's not.
Since we've been talking about the Iraq War, just came up in Jon Stewart's heyday as someone who spoke out against it, and honestly, maybe I'm being too hard on him. Like, I don't remember his. I can't tell if I view his career through rose-colored glasses, or it just, like, I watched his interview with Judith Miller the other day, and he really rips into her to her face, and those things were valuable, honestly.
Yeah, I mean,
at that time,
particularly because there was no avenue for that, and I mean, there hasn't really been an avenue for that on mainstream media. I mean, Trevor Noah's been, I think Trevor. I think there's a lot to take issue with Jon Stewart's politics. Of course, everyone knows the limits of the "Make America Sane Again" thing, but also David Feldman will go on and fill up like half of his very long show about Jon Stewart's anti-labor stuff, which I think is something that sticks in my craw every time he does something nice that I'd support. Because absolutely, you're right, that show, I watched it all the time, and it did orientate me in a certain way that I've graduated from a little bit, but was certainly helpful in setting, I think, certain people up for like opposing wars, for instance.
Right. But speaking of that war, Liz Cheney has a campaign ad, and I want you guys to brace yourself for this. Her dad came out of his, I don't know what, freezer, chamber, tomb, to...
He's like bathing in Yellowstone or something like that.
The
primordial swamp.
He came out from his sauna filled with the mist of the blood of Iraqi children that he inhales as a part of his spa ritual. I don't even know routine. What the hell he's doing. Yeah,
still alive though somehow.
It is a real shame that he and Henry Kissinger are still alive, and we've lost so many great people in that time period. But regardless, here is war criminal Dick Cheney speaking on behalf of his daughter Liz Cheney before her House primary, in which he says that Donald Trump is a grave threat to our republic, and as Atrios pointed out on Twitter, he's probably just a little pissed that Donald Trump has him beat at number 1, and he's sitting there, unfortunately, at this point at number 2.
In our nation's 246-year history, there has never been an individual who is a greater threat to our republic than Donald Trump. He tried to steal the last election using lies and violence to keep himself in power after the voters had rejected him. He is a coward. A real man wouldn't lie to his supporters. He lost his election, and he lost big. I know it, he knows it, and deep down, I think most Republicans know it. Lynn and I are so proud of Liz for standing up for the truth, doing what's right, honoring her oath to the Constitution, when so many in our party are too scared to do so. Liz is fearless. She never backs down from a fight. There is nothing more important she will ever do than lead the effort to make sure Donald Trump is never again near the Oval Office. And she will succeed. I am Dick Cheney. I proudly voted for my daughter. I hope you will too.
I'm Liz Cheney, and I approve this message.
Sure you do. We know you do. It's so... The gall of him to show his face in public, this war criminal, really is just shocking to me, let alone speak about who's a greater threat to the republic than Donald Trump, because we all know, like, again, it's probably a tie between you guys, but to use the fact that you're maybe at this current moment losing out on that title from him as a campaign ad, man, that speaks to his hubris for sure.
Yeah, Dick Cheney knows nothing about stealing an election.
Right, and like an individual alone, not to be America has strong institutions, because that's not the point I'm making, but America and republic cannot be threatened by a single person. There's an entire party apparatus around Donald Trump being groomed toward doing judicial electoral coups. And like, if you can't call that out and you instead make this about
one
individual, and whether or not he's a real man or not, because a real man doesn't try to steal elections. Like, I can, frankly, I think that actually
And you're right that one person cannot, like, they're surrounded by a party apparatus. One person can't destroy democracy in and of himself, but some people can be more influential on that path, and Cheney was arguably more influential than Donald Trump.
I think absolutely space has to be made for that. I mean, just think of like major geopolitical issues we have right now and how confused and frankly less potency does the American response to, say, a Russian invasion in Ukraine have when we literally just destroyed Iraq.
I mean, and even what he did domestically, right, where essentially he allowed for the AUMF to allow to give Bush powers, and basically himself powers, to surveil Americans extrajudicially, essentially. He was responsible for designating, I believe, prisoners of war as enemy combatants so that they were allowed to circumvent torture law and the Geneva Conventions. Even before he was in the Bush administration, he was in the minority in the Iran-Contra investigation, which gave the executive more authority to broadly do whatever they want, the executive branch. And then he accelerated that aggressively as the vice president to give Bush just less oversight, more powers in wartime that have yet to be rolled back since. He literally undercut, in a variety of ways, the ability for the American people to democratically affect wartime decisions. I mean, he drastically reduced that and made it much more about whatever the hell the president wants to do. So in terms of a destruction of democratic institutions, man, there are few people in Dick Cheney more few people other than Dick Cheney who were more influential on that front.
Yeah, and also just a reminder, Liz Cheney said that Democrats were killing babies after birth as part of abortion. So that's who she is too.
A Shiro in herstory, Liz Cheney.
Wow. All right. Let's do another clip because we have nothing else. Calls down and IMs down. Jesse Waters here. Let's do this. Here's Jesse Waters talking about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Oh, not big. This is going to be good.
It's I want you to brace yourselves for the misogyny, folks, but it might exceed it even in terms of your wildest imaginations. He has advice for AOC if she wants to run for president. She's not ripe enough as a banana. She's got to get pregnant first, he says.
I'd say that AOC has a skill set, but she's missing things like knowledge.
But with age comes wisdom, and she's pretty young. That's my nice way of saying she's not very smart. She's like, you know, when you pick a banana and the banana's in your hand and it's green, and then even if you try to peel it, it's still not even peeling.
Yes.
That's AOC. She's not ripe enough to run for president. First, she has to get married.
Wait,
she has to plan a wedding. Or you want to plan a wedding and run for president at the same time?
Oh, I see what you mean.
Okay, so then her husband would have to do it and the wedding would stink.
Because she just got engaged.
She's engaged, yes. And then you have to get pregnant. So
why?
No. This is how it goes. This is how it goes. Just follow me, Greg. Once you get married,
I'm not following you.
Then you get pregnant, and then once you have the baby, you have a family.
Right.
And the media loves it. They eat it up, and it makes you more of a mature person. That's why you're so immature. You don't have any kids. So then, after she has the family, then she runs for Senate. She runs for Senate in New York. You get to meet all the big-time donors. You get into the Senate, and then you're a force to be reckoned with at the hearings. And then she runs for president. Obama, first term from Illinois. That's the way to do it. Because right now she's not really seen as a serious person. She's childish.
Or ripe.
She fakes her arrest. She's giving makeup tips. But if you give it maybe, I would say 10 years, would that be 2032, then she'd be ripe enough to run for president.
Oh my God.
Because she can't unify the party right now. Everybody in the party, most of them hate her.
Yeah.
And I think
Not
after
true.
10 years,
Why do
she could
anybody in
unify
the
the
Democrats
party.
hate her? Is because
But
she's right
now,
about things.
do you think she could today win a state like Michigan or North Carolina or Wisconsin or Pennsylvania? There's
Can you
no
pause
way.
it? All right, we're good. So Alex, just a fact check really quickly. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is a lot more popular than, say, Joe Manchin within her own party. She's more popular than a lot of other politicians within her own party, but that's beside the point, right? Like, so...
Also, like, can I just jump in on the popularity point? Like, there's an entire apparatus, including the Fox News channel, set up to project hate about her and also titillate at the exact same time. Like, that's what he's doing. When he's saying she's young, and that's my way of calling her stupid. Like, nah, not when you say she's young and then she's not ripe enough. Like, this is they like to, like, basically excite their audience psychosexually and confuse them with like hate and sexy, and that's like, it's just a Fox. That's a Rupert Murdoch sort of standby. He's been doing this for longer than we've been alive.
It's also, it's standard misogyny, and it's a way for them to delegitimize her as a sex object. When you talk about her as a piece of fruit as opposed to a human being, you know, she has to have children first, right? Like, that's the only acceptable way that a woman can conduct herself in society. Did he say this about Lindsey Graham when Lindsey Graham was running for office? Lindsey Graham never got married, never had a kid. It's so odd that that is not reserved. That kind of commentary is not reserved for Lindsey Graham. And now he says she's got to meet with big donors and be in the Senate. I guess any representative, any member of Congress on the Republican side, hey, they can't be taken seriously, right? Donald Trump never elected to public office before. I don't know if Jesse Waters had that same commentary when it comes to that. But, like, the underlying story behind this is that Jesse Waters is a misogynistic creep, and it's been proven. He went on air and bragged about how he let out the air of the tires of his intern in the parking garage of Fox News so that she could stick around because she had no other way to get home and was trapped, so he could hook up with her and basically flirt with her. And now they're married. What a romantic story. He left his wife for his intern after letting out that intern's tires, so she was trapped, and then he was able to coerce her into a relationship. That guy has a healthy relationship with women, I'll tell you that.
He tried to clarify in the next episode after he told that story that he was embellishing and
yeah,
joking.
sure.
And you know, I believe him. I believe that Jesse wouldn't do such a thing to other women based on how he treats women on his show and talks about other women.
Yeah.
It's out of character, frankly.
Right. How could anyone make such an assumption?
How could a gentleman like Jesse Waters treat his own wife?
I like, honestly, I would, the way that he speaks about women, like her as like a banana like that, it really just gets my blood boiling.
It's horrible, and also this coheres with right wing. Some might say like Silicon Valley fascist speak about, say, someone like J.D. Vance saying people would like politicians that are childless don't count.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we're gonna probably see a lot more of this because a lot more people are making decision not to have kids for whatever reason, and but for whatever reason, and there's
Kamala Harris doesn't have children.
Starting to interrogate those reasons.
Yeah.
And well, I mean, they would say like, see Exhibit B.
Yeah.
But like people are actually like looking to larger issues and societal problems that are obstacles to them having children, and the Republicans want to get out ahead of it. Like there's a weak article saying should parents' votes count more, right? Like I mean,
yes,
insane.
It's a virtue in and of itself. It's also a good way to tie into, like, if you have an abortion or you choose to not have children, there's something inherently wrong with you, and there's also something that makes you less of a woman. And if you're not a woman, then you must be confused about gender roles writ large, and like, how can we trust you? I also love the arrogance of it, like, as if he wants to earnestly help her in her ripening. Like, dude, you are so creepy, and why would she ever take Fox News' advice? Like, you know, I think you're really stupid, but maybe I'll consider you less stupid if you ripen a little bit more. It's just so amazingly arrogant. And it also just goes to show, like, hey, if you're of a certain age and I still perceive you as a sex object, I'm not going to take you seriously. You're just there for my gratification. But once you become a mother, you're a little more matronly, maybe you get a little more long in the tooth. And then I don't see you purely as a sexual object, so then you can be taken seriously on the political stage.
Elise Stefanik had to defend herself, or like really got upset at something that Times Union published. Times Union published a fictional blog post titled "Storytime with Elise Stefanik" on Sunday, meant to satirically mock the Congresswoman, written as though she were reading to a group of children. And Stefanik responded, "I myself am childless because I'm a rising star in the Republican Party, and family planning is possible by way of contraception paid for by my excellent taxpayer-funded health care." Interesting. I mean, blue state Democrat or Republicans are wild, but like this is gonna. I mean, this can't be a. I see the structural reason why they're going here and why Nazis like it, but like it seems very unwise to me from the perspective of like wanting to appeal to people.
But at the same time, like I say, she'll be taken seriously, or even Stefanik will be taken seriously if they reach a certain age by his standards. They'll never take a woman seriously.
Yeah,
they'll never take a woman seriously as their nominee. For as long as, like, the Jesse Waterses of the world are still dominant voices in the Republican Party, and, like, eventually the conservative movement will probably get on board with a few select women, but we all know where the misogyny is always going to be, and what side it's going to be on.
And I don't know if this has changed, but for the first couple of years of AOC being on the national scene, she was more known by Republicans than by Democrats because of this hate machine. And that's a huge cultural disadvantage to start with. So like to the extent that stuff comes up that says she's nationally unpopular in certain states, like first of all, I don't think AOC is thinking about running for president. Like I've heard, I feel like she's thinking about leaving politics more realistically than that. So like it's all just an excuse to sort of hint at AOC as a sex object and also hate her as an idiot, which is ridiculous from a network that celebrates people like Lauren Boebert.
What a wonderful transition there, Matt. Lauren Boebert has been making some media rounds recently, and here she is talking about the Biden administration finally officially declaring a state of emergency for monkeypox, which unlocks some powers and an ability for the federal government to respond as cases continue to climb. Naturally, right-wingers have seen this as an opportunity to attack gay people. And of course, because there's this muscle memory about COVID being a planned demic, anytime there is some sort of public health emergency, it's conspiracy time for the Republicans. And no one personifies that more than Lauren Boebert.
Emergency. Congresswoman, I'm going to go to you first on this. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, just like you said, they're not canceling exactly where the outbreaks are taking place. But go back to COVID. They shut down our churches. They shut down our schools. They shut down our businesses, our grocery stores. It was absolutely insane. Everything, the entire planet was shut down over this. And we know exactly what causes this monkeypox, and they're not doing anything. No, actually, you're a bigot if you talk about it. Right. And I think it's interesting. We have midterm elections coming up, and suddenly there's a new health emergency from the federal government. President Ronald Reagan, I'm not looking for zombie Reagan to come and save America, but he really did say it best. He said, the most dangerous words are, I'm from the federal government and I'm here to help.
Yeah, idiot.
Emergency. Okay, dumb.
Yeah, try experiencing a flood, you idiot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, talk about... I'm pretty sure that the people in New Orleans during Hurricane Katrina would have welcomed some federal help. Interesting.
Yeah, I'm the government and I'm here to help you with this flood damage.
So there's a lot not there, but there is something interesting that I would like to point out. When did these lockdowns happen during the pandemic?
Well, that's what is always so interesting and why it's unbelievable that supposed members of the left got caught up in this, like everything was shut down sort of thing. No, not everything was shut down. I could always go into a grocery store and buy groceries. There was some supply issues early on because of stopping people from going from work. But first of all, you look at per capita deaths. America is absolutely horrible. We killed way more people than we should have with this. With even what we did do, we should have had way more. Like countries like in Asia would have people come to your house and bring you food if you were sick, because like I mean it's unbelievable the amount of things that we didn't do, and the only thing that they're upset about is that you couldn't go into Applebee's, and that was really tough on certain small business owners, and that's who this is speaking about. They like
She's
to,
one of them.
Exactly, and they like to pretend like I'm worried about the people most affected by the pandemic. Well, the people most affected, i.e. Working people, poor people, they support all this stuff. They are not anti lockdown at all. They just thought they should have got more support from the government, actually not less. It is the small business owners who, by the way, got a whole bunch of money just from a giant slush fund given to them during that, and they should be fine. And now they're worried because like losing a whole bunch of like hundreds of thousands of people, up to 1 million people in this country, plus an economic shutdown has and workers having a little bit more leverage. Like that's the real authoritarianism that they're experiencing. These business owners is that workers are the great resignation.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what all this stuff is filtering in a pseudo populist way. But this is the National Restaurant Association.
Yeah. Same people who, by the way, are pushing the crime wave and also real estate groups narrative that is not really that connected to facts, particularly when you take the pandemic into account. And
actually, I think the crime stuff is like real estate. I think is probably like shut up about the crime stuff, but that's another small business sort of thing. And part of it is, I mean, look, when people say crime, they mean the
homeless people being outside of our properties. That's why I said real estate, but I guess you're right. If, particularly in like cities and stuff, they might want to downplay it.
Exactly, and it's kind of like that's what people mean. I mean, there's a small rise in certain types of crime that one would expect when a pandemic and government shutdown happens, and especially when people are left out without like things like healthcare. We should have expanded though that's on the government, and I'm here to extend everyone universal health care during this pandemic would have been popular.
Of course, and we've gone over why the Democrats only wanted to extend COBRA subsidies, which was way more inefficient and more costly, because if you crack the door open on a Medicare expansion, then people might want that for sure.
Yeah, and we know how people like Boebert would talk about that.
And like, again, my point at the beginning of this was the strictest lockdowns happened under Trump. In 2020, when we didn't have vaccines and when the pandemic was at its most unpredictable. And so, like, that is when these things happened. And so their conspiracy is that now when Democrats are in power and in charge of the federal government, they will create a fake pandemic to scare people into voting for them again, when honestly, it's super clear, in my opinion, that Biden would have likely lost. It's just my guess, or at the very least, had an even harder time defeating Trump if the pandemic had not been a thing. The pandemic and the people responded to who was in power and said, "You're doing a bad job with this, and we want you out of here."
Trump got COVID, and he was actually scared about it, you idiots. Like, the idea that it's a fake is just, I mean...
No, monkeypox is fake now.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure.
But it's also a gay disease punishing the gays.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, it's not sexually transmitted. It is transmitted from vigorous, skin-to-skin, person-to-person contact, which often does... mean it's transmitted through sex, but it can be transmitted in a variety of other ways because of that.
And when school comes back, Republicans are setting the table for accusing or insinuating that the infections that are going to happen at school, because we got to open the schools no matter what, even if the teachers are sick. I just asked Jimmy Dore about the Chicago teachers.
Grooming teachers.
When kids start getting sick about monkeypox, their response will be, "This is the groomer thing part 2," and libs at TikTok will be all over it.
All right, let's do like 2 more clips, and then we are going to get out of here, I think. Let's do this Viktor Orban thing video. Viktor Orban spoke at CPAC, and this is reminiscent of Benjamin Netanyahu speaking to Congress in defiance of Obama, basically, and pledging his fealty to the Republican Party. There's like a growing, I think, connection with certain far-right leaders who are trying to like Americanize their right-wing rhetoric. Bolsonaro takes a ton from Donald Trump. Benjamin Netanyahu understands that his bread is buttered by the evangelical right here in the United States. And Viktor Orban has developed a buddy-buddy friendship with Tucker Carlson and other right-wing leaders here in the United States. So he was invited to talk at the Conservative Political Action Conference. And here he is basically tailoring his rhetoric to match and to appease the audience there in Texas.
Hungary shall protect the institution of marriage as the union of one man and one woman. Family ties shall be based on marriage or the relationship between parents and children. To sum up, the mother is a woman, the father is a man, and leave our kids alone. Full stop, end of discussion. Hungary.
So there you go. Some anti-trans panic, but an international flavor from Viktor Orban at CPAC. There were other clips of him talking about Hungary and he called it the Lone Star State of Europe. Again, this was in Texas. He said that we need less drag queens and more Chuck Norris. He said, what else did he say here? I had some other things written down because he really went hard.
I mean,
cheesed it up. But.
Some history of Viktor Orban. He has basically done what people like Brett Weinstein, the anti-IDW folks, Chris Rufo want done to higher education with regards to purging any sort of what they call critical race theory type of stuff. Basically, anything that tells the truth about a country's history that the nationalists might be upset about. But also, and he's not just that kind of authoritarian, which is everyone kind of gets that, being anti-gay. Most people understand, like, oh, that's bad. But also what might be missed is that he's also a COVID authoritarian. And as somebody who just recently said, like, I thought the government should have done more, what I don't mean is what Viktor Orban did in March 2020, which had Parliament pass a bill giving Orban power, unlimited power, and proclaimed state of emergency without time limit, rule by decree, Parliament suspended, no elections, and this is one interesting for the right-wingers, the contrarian civil libertarian types, spreading fake news and rumors up to 5 years in prison, and leaving quarantine up to 8 years in prison. So that's somehow missed by all these patriots who have made an entire identity around COVID authoritarianism while being studiously avoidant of commenting on what's going on with Title 42 at the border and how that is probably the number one policy of like American empire and reaction using COVID as a cover to follow its own priorities.
Like, that's actually authoritarian, right? I mean,
yeah,
that's right.
I mean, I would say suspending Parliament.
Yes, of course, but like the idea that please stay in your house, that's authoritarian. No, but locking people up if you violate these laws,
like I would have never supported that.
Me neither. So I mean, that is shocking. And like beyond that stuff, right? He's talked about the Great Replacement theory in reference to
he's a Nazi.
It's like the reason that Tucker Carlson highlights him, and other people like Steve Bannon have used Orban as an example of a leader that they want to multiply throughout the world
Yeah.
is because of the nativist stuff.
Yeah, fascist.
So he's getting more and more mainstream due to Tucker Carlson's highlighting of his career here in the United States, I should say. And I would also bring up another connection to the right that he made. I think like 4 or 5 years ago, maybe now. Jordan Peterson took a little trip over to Hungary and visited Orban. And there's never been any follow-up, despite Eric Weinstein performatively acting upset about it. But like that's something I'll follow up on, frankly. Like, hey, Waz, what were you doing over in Hungary when you were quoted in the press saying that Muslims might be incompatible with democracy? That's what Jordan Peterson did. And none of those charlatan cowards in the IDW have the courage to ever bring that up with him again. And, we'll just ask him about, I don't know, like why Russia started the war because the West is too woke now. Yeah. All right, final clip of the day. Let's do this DeSantis thing. Trying to find it here. Number 9. So Ron DeSantis has decided to suspend the U.S. Attorney for Hillsborough County in Florida, which encompasses Tampa. His name is Andrew Warren. He's a Democrat. Andrew Warren signed a pledge that he would refuse to enforce the abortion ban criminally, basically going after providers and people who seek abortions within his jurisdiction. Now, prosecutorial discretion is a thing. It's actually very widely used by right-wing prosecutors, by left-wing prosecutors, and it's in his purview to do this. And yet, and it's also the right thing to do, obviously. Ron DeSantis, though, decided to retaliate against him, one of his political enemies within his state. Again, Warren is a Democrat. And here he is announcing that he is going to be suspending Warren, who has also said publicly that he will not go after doctors who provide trans-affirming care for people as well. Can happen in Ron DeSantis' Florida.
The Constitution of Florida has vested the veto power in the governor, not in individual state attorneys. And so when you flagrantly violate your oath of office, when you make yourself above the law, you have violated your duty, you have neglected your duty, and you are displaying a lack of competence to be able to perform those duties. And so today we are suspending State Attorney Andrew Warren, effective immediately.
So naturally, this is another one of the fascist feathers in DeSantis' cap ahead of 2024. These are the kinds of performative actions that he's made a name for himself on and has made himself a darling of right-wing media, who is seeking an alternative to Trump that is just as disgusting, but without the baggage and without the fun, honestly, of like his insult routines at his Trump rallies. I mean, let's be real. Yeah. But so this is a part of their interconnected way to attack abortion rights and attack LGBTQ people. So this attorney, Andrew Warren, has said that he will not go after doctors again for providing abortions if it is necessary, and 2, for providing trans-affirming care to minors, which people like Jordan Peterson and right-wing politicians have designated as a butchering, because they need to make every action of trans-affirming care into a surgery in order to elicit a disgusted response from their base. When the reality is that, yes, sometimes, in some instances, top surgery is done. Very rarely, is my understanding, but it has happened, and for minor trans kids. But bottom minor surgery really just
no, it doesn't.
It doesn't happen.
It's a lie. And the top surgery is only after the child has like socially transitioned and has lived in that identity for a long time.
A long time.
And this is all things you can trust doctors and parents with, and you don't need the state and fascists employed by and appointed by people like DeSantis to get in the way of that.
And the reason that they want to make it all about surgery is because, as I say, right, they think it's more visceral for people. But trans-affirming care is so much more encompassing than just the surgical element. And there are so many steps that lead to that period, including puberty blockers, hormones in general, that get you to a point where then you have said surgery. And all of that is, you can pause it. It's not invasive in the way that they like to set up because, you know, again, they're going for they're going for you're butchering our kids, that kind of response from people.
Yeah. And just a note, it's a little bit rich for the governor of Florida to be talking about selective enforcement of laws. I don't mean to besmirch Floridans too much. I think actually, frankly, most would agree with what I'm about to say. I've enjoyed Miami much. And you know, Orlando's fine. But very scammy state. And my impression of that is not backed up by numbers. This is from the USA Today. On average, there were 500 complaints per 100,000 residents in the 50 states for fraud. 8 of the 10 states with the highest rates had at least 600 complaints per 100,000 residents. Florida led the nation with nearly 1,000 complaints per 100,000 people, which would be 1 in 100 that you're going to get defrauded in that state. Based on data published by the FTC's annual Consumer Sentinel report 24/7, the 10 states identified with the most fraud. A little bit more, according debt collection complaints such as aggressive practices or factual misrepresentations were the most common complaint after identity theft. These complaints occurred most often in Florida, where 18% of all reports, or 18% of all reports in the country, or 28,212 were in this category. So I would worry about your state being a giant haven for scammers.
And a tax haven as well for like wealthy New Yorkers who will live in the state for half of the 365 days plus one. I can't do math. As a way to avoid state taxes. Yeah, it is a scam state. And that is because of Ron DeSantis. And
in part, I mean, Rick Scott also like one of the highest penalties of all time for scams. You know, I mean,
Medicare scam, right?
Yeah, it was. And
or Medicaid, I forget.
One of those. And look, he pleads the fifth.
Anyway, dark timeline. All right, well, we do not have calls or IMs. So with that, I'm sorry, guys. We're ending a little bit early.
See you, folks.
I'm making Matt's weekend. But at the same time, actually, we just have we can't access anything, unfortunately. But, you know, that's the way the cookie crumbles.
We'll be back Monday, and we'll try not to have the power go out.
Yeah. With that said, folks, great stuff. Really appreciate it. Thanks for a great week. Thank you, Bradley. Thank you, Matt. And Brendan, who left just now in absentia. We will see you on Monday.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bar, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. I get somewhere the choice was made, for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess somehow I lost my drive,